Welcome to the P.A.S. Report podcast. If you're tired of censorship, outraged by government abuses, and thirsty for real insights, then you're in the right place. Get ready, because here, the fight for freedom never ends. Here's your host, Professor Nick Giordano.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the America's Founding Series, part of the P.A.S. Report podcast. This is your host, Nick Giordano. I'm glad you joined me today. Make sure that you follow and subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. Also, visit the P.A.S. Report website, pasreport.com, and share this episode with your family, friends, other great patriots out there. Because we start off with a question. What makes men risk everything for an idea? For a principle that exists more in promise and theory than it does in reality. So today I'm taking a slightly different approach. I'm going to focus on two great patriots, not just one, but two, as we have to journey to the Battle of Groton Heights. There were so many people that died at Groton Heights, and it's a disservice almost not to cover them all. But the two I want to speak about are awe-inspiring. Yet they've largely been forgotten. Stories of two men who had courage, who had fortitude. This is the story about the complexities of America's founding. It's a story that demonstrates how ordinary people become extraordinary. It's what defines America, quite simply. And too many seem to believe that the government is what creates America. But the truth is, it's the people. So this is the story about the promise of America and the belief in a cause greater than oneself. And we're going to tell the story of Jordan Freeman and Lambert Latham. Their names are etched not in our national memory, but in the soil of Connecticut, where their blood was shed in the name of American freedom. And we have to go back to the year 1781. The American Revolution is entering the final desperate phases. British, led by the infamous turncoat General Benedict Arnold, begin to launch a raid on the Connecticut coastline. And the turning of Benedict Arnold really is a fascinating story. You know, I always cover the Patriots on the America's Founding series, but one day I may have to explain Benedict Arnold and his transition from a patriot to a traitor. That might be a fascinating episode, but more importantly, I want to speak about two real heroes, Jordan Freeman and Lambert Latham, because the British had their sights set on a target. The vital port of New London, just across the river on the Groton side, a small stone fort stood, and it was one of the last lines of defense, Fort Griswold. It's a modest outpost, not like anything you'd see today, but it still stands. And at the time, this is all that's going to stand between Benedict Arnold and total control of the harbor. So this fort was critically important. It was only manned by about 160 local militiamen. These were not professional soldiers. They were farmers, merchants, craftsmen, ordinary people, and they were led by the respected local officer, Colonel William Ledyard. As dawn breaks, the men of Fort Griswold watch in disbelief as Benedict Arnold's redcoats land. The skies begin to fill with black smoke. They're burning down New London. Chilling message arrives from the British. Fort Griswold, it's to be taken. And with it, every man inside. Surrender is not going to be an option. The defenders are giving no quarter, no option to surrender. It's going to be a fight to the death. And Ledyard, he's looking out. He's seeing the advance of the British, his men looking on. Rather than run, they're going to fight it out. Among them are fascinating figures like Jordan Freeman and Lambert Latham. Now, before we get to the actual battle, let's understand who these great patriots were. Why would they choose to fight for a nation that's still grappling with its own contradictions, particularly when it comes to this concept of liberty and black people? First, there's Jordan Freeman. His story is a really remarkable, unique story woven into the fabric of not just the Latham family, but also America. Jordan was a freed man. His last name, though, Freeman. It was not a coincidence. It's a name he was given, a surname of his own choosing to signify his emancipation. Stories has it that he was formerly enslaved by Colonel Ledyard himself, the family, but during the Revolution, Ledyard had not only freed Jordan, but they developed a profound relationship with each other, a relationship of mutual respect. Jordan chose to stay with the colonel, serving as his personal bodyguard and aide. Now think about that for a minute. You have this slave master in Ledyard, and then you have Jordan Freeman, who earns his emancipation. He doesn't cut and run. This wasn't a master and a former slave. It was a relationship born of shared experiences and values. And Colonel Ledyard, in freeing Jordan, allowing him to take a new name, recognized his full humanity. Jordan, in turn, recognized that Ledyard's leadership and the cause of liberty, a chance for a better future, not just for himself, but for future generations, for a nation that was beginning to find its way. This was a complex relationship. It was a microcosm of the nation's public struggle with its own founding principles. Then we move on to Lambert Latham. Lambert was a free black man. We don't have the greatest historical record on him, but it's believed that his family had been in the Groton area for a while, that he was a member of the local militia, a free man fighting on his own accord. He wasn't fighting to prove his worthiness for freedom. He was fighting to defend his home, his community, his countrymen, and the ideals he believed in as a free man. His bravery came from a place of resolve, a man who saw the promise of America, was willing to defend it with his life. And these men, one formerly enslaved, the other born free, stood side by side, united by a belief in a cause that was much bigger than themselves. Now, at Fort Griswold, you have the British numbering over 800 to our several dozen troops, and the assault's going to begin. The air fills with the sounds of musket fire, shouts of men, the deafening roar of cannons, and the American defenders, they're vastly outnumbered. But they're going to fight back with a ferocity that's going to shock the British. In the heat of the battle, you're going to have British Major William Montgomery leading a charge, climbing over the parapet, and he is a symbol of the British onslaught. He's ready to lead his men to victory. They felt that this was going to be easy. But as he gets to the top of the wall, he's met with a force much more powerful than any sword. It's Jordan Freeman, standing his ground, raising his pike, a long wooden staff with a metal spear tip, and in a single motion, he's going to thrust it through Montgomery's chest. The major's going to fall dead. It was a moment of triumph for the Americans, but the British, they're enraged. And they're finally going to breach the fort's defenses. Recognizing the futility of continued resistance, Colonel Ledyard orders his men to surrender. He hands his sword, hilt first, as a sign of an honorable surrender to the British commander, Major Brumfield. And we need to take a quick commercial break, but when we get back, I'm going to explain the harrowing aftermath of the Battle of Fort Griswold, the powerful legacy of Jordan Freeman and Lambert Latham. So everyone hang tight. We'll be right back. Are you ready to move easily and independently without pain and stiffness holding you back? Do you want to look in the mirror and see a hydrated glow instead of more fine lines and wrinkles? Well, discover Native Path Collagen, made with only type 1 and 3 collagen fibers. These are the two most important types that make up 90% of the collagen found in your cartilage, bones, skin, hair, nails, and gut. They provide maximum benefits. And Native Path Collagen is a single ingredient formula with no fillers, additives, or artificial sweeteners. Plus, it's third-party tested for heavy metals, ensuring purity and safety. Completely flavorless, Native Path Collagen can be added to anything: coffee, smoothies, oatmeal, you name it. It doesn't clump, it absorbs fast thanks to its peptide formula. And the best part, Native Path offers amazing bundle deals at a fraction of the price of other brands. With over 4 million jars sold, 1 million happy customers, 8,000 5-star reviews, and a 365-day no-risk guarantee, Native Path is a brand you could trust. They offer an 800 number for any questions you may have, and then you'll speak to a real person who's there to help. Visit getnativepath.com/PAS and start your transformation today. That's getnativepath.com/PAS. Welcome back to the America's Founding Series. Now, if you're enjoying the series, do me a favor, take 30 seconds, write a good review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, leave the P.A.S. Report podcast a 5-star rating on any podcast platform that you listen on. Also, share this episode with those who have a love and appreciation for America. Share it with those who want to learn more about what makes America so exceptional. Because I want to get back to the two great patriots, Jordan Freeman and Lambert Latham. We left off with Colonel Ledyard respectfully surrendering to the British. But what happened next was an act of pure evil, pure unadulterated vengeance. Instead of accepting Ledyard's surrender, Major Brumfield takes Ledyard's own sword and plunges it into his heart. This is an act of betrayal, but it's just the start of a horrific massacre that's going to occur. The British soldiers, enraged by the casualties they encountered with only a few dozen Americans, they begin to bayonet, wounding, killing all those that were surrendering. Over 80 American soldiers, men who had already laid down their arms, are killed after the fighting has stopped. And even by the brutal standards of the 18th century warfare, this is a clear violation of all honor and military code. You know, it may sound hypocritical, it may sound dumb, but there's an etiquette to war. And that etiquette was obliterated by the British. Amid the carnage, a final incredible act of defiance is going to unfold. The American flag, the symbol, the very symbol of the cause that they were fighting for, is going to be struck down. And Lambert Latham is having none of it. Witnessing the bloodshed, the fall of his country's colors, he's going to refuse to accept defeat. According to local legend, Lambert Latham, seeing the flag struck down, the massacre unfolding, he ran and raised the flag again. He refused to surrender. And that's when he was surrounded and stabbed to death, some say over 30 times, dying with the flag in his hands in a final act of defiance that should be remembered today, that should still echo today. He died defending his country's flag, serving as a testament to his unbreakable resolve. And both Jordan Freeman and Lambert Latham died in this massacre. Their heroic actions were obscured by the horror and the chaos, but their memory was preserved by the community that refused to forget them. These stories of these two men are not just historical footnotes. It's stories like these that define the greatness of America. Jordan Freeman, a man who earned his freedom from slavery, chose to fight for a cause in an unwavering belief in liberty that was not afforded to him throughout the majority of his life. Lambert Latham, a free man, defended his home, defended his ideals. He believed in liberty, and he believed in it so much that he gave his life for it. They saw the promise of America not as hypocrisy, but as a prophecy that the ideals of liberty and equality would one day be realized for all. And their sacrifices force us to confront the beautiful and difficult complexities of our founding. The American Revolution was not a perfect movement. It wasn't led by perfect men. It was bloody. It was chaotic. Sometimes it was contradictory. But in that struggle, men like Jordan Freeman, Lambert Latham chose to fight for something bigger than themselves. They didn't fight for recognition. They didn't fight for ego. They fought for an ideal. They fought for the belief that a nation founded on the principles of liberty was worth fighting and dying for. Today, we've taken advantage of that. How many of us take advantage of the liberties that have been afforded? And as our government expands, as our liberty contracts, how long will it be before we regret that we didn't speak up and speak more? We didn't learn about our founding. We didn't learn about the people like Lambert Latham, like Jordan Freeman, who put everything on the line so that we could have all the luxuries we enjoy today. Now, if you visit Fort Griswold in Groton, Connecticut, you see a monument to those who fell in honor of their sacrifices. As I said, over 80 people died. It's impossible to recognize them all on a short podcast episode. But the men at Fort Griswold deserve their due. Their blood helped birth the nation. And not only did it help birth the nation, it may have inspired the biggest victory. It may have inspired the American Patriots at the Battle of Yorktown, because according to legend, the Marquis de Lafayette shouted, "Remember Fort Griswold," as they took on the British. Jordan Freeman and Lambert Latham weren't just casualties of war. They were defenders of America's founding ideals, patriots who believed liberty was worth dying for. Their sacrifices, it may not appear in textbooks today, but their legacy deserves to be etched into our national memory, especially when you look at what they've done. They are just as important as those we celebrate as the Founding Fathers. Now, if this episode moved you, share it with someone who believes in the American spirit. Share it with those other patriots. Because America is more than just a government. It's more than just politics. America is an idea, and there's no other nation like it. So I encourage you, subscribe to the America's Founding series, leave the P.A.S. Report podcast a good review on any podcast platform that allows it, especially Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and help us keep the memory of forgotten patriots like Jordan Freeman and Lambert Latham alive.
Thank you for listening to the P.A.S. Report. Don't forget to rate, share, and hit that subscribe button. That way you'll never miss an episode. For more exclusive content and updates, visit us at pasreport.com and follow Professor Giordano on all social media platforms at P.A.S. Report.